We're looking at numerical data, and we're going to break it up into discrete and continuous. So with discrete data, it's very similar to when we were graphing categorical data. The only difference is we're actually going to use something called a histogram. The histogram has got all the bars joined together as opposed to the bar graph which did not. So with this example for discrete data, you can see the number of brothers and sisters reported by each of 30 students in Year 11 are as follows. We're asked to construct a frequency table, add a percentage frequency column to it, and then construct a histogram. So we look at our data and we see that the amount of siblings ranges from 0 through to 6, so that goes in our siblings column. The tally, we then look at each one of them individually and see how many of them they are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and our frequency is 6. And then we fill our table down accordingly. So now we're up to the last one, and you can see that there is 1, 6. So 1 and 1. And really what we should be looking for here in our frequency column is that they all add up to the total number of siblings. So 6 and 7 is 13, and 6 is 19, 5 is 24, 27, 29, and 30, which is correct, as we know that we had 30 siblings. Now, just adding on the percentage frequency column, we know that we take the frequency, we divide it by the total amount, and then times it by 100 to make the percentage. So for the first one, 6 out of 30, times it by 100, and that equals 20%. And then we actually just fill down the rest, and of course we should be aiming to get approximately 100%. And of course the last one, 1 out of 30, about 3.3%, and again it's approximately 100%. Might be a little bit off because of some of the rounding, but we want to get it as close as possible. So to draw the histogram, we are going to have to put a heading, labels, and then transfer all our data from the frequency table onto that. So let's start. So our heading for this one is the number of siblings for 30 Year 11 students. You can pretty much write what you want as long as it describes the data. Obviously on the vertical axes we always have the frequency, and we know the highest frequency was 7, so I'm going to go up to 7 in ones because it's easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and of course you'll be doing this with your ruler. And along the bottom we know that we're talking about number of siblings, so that needs to be our label there. So number of siblings, and we know that number of siblings range from 0 through to 6. Now usually 0 will start from the origin on our axis, but because these are almost like categories, we would put 0 as one of our categories. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now our bars are pretty much joined together with each of those discrete numerical values in the middle of the bar. So there's our completed histogram. You can see each of our numerical values are in the middle of the bars. The bars are all joined together. So in the middle, you can see also that we have labelled each axis, frequency, number of siblings, and that we have written a heading. So really this graph is standalone. If someone wants to come and read it, they can actually get all the information off it without having to go back and look at the original data. Okay, so we're looking at continuous data now, and continuous data obviously can be measured or weighed. And what we need to do with this, because we have so many values, is to start grouping the data. And so you can see in the first question we're asked to do a frequency table, and we're asked to use class intervals of 5. So we're going to go up in 5s. So what we've got here are 41 players in a basketball club, and we have their heights. So we're going to group them in 5s. We've got our table set up. So now what we want to do is go up in 5s and set out our table appropriately. So you can see there that the smallest value is 170.5, which is there. And our biggest value is 203.7. So obviously our values need to be written between those two. Okay, so we are going to start at 170 and go all the way up to our next, or the beginning of our next group, which is 175. I'm not going to put an end point there because I want all of those values between 170 up to 175, but not including. And then I continue on with my groups, so 180, 185, 190, 195, and 200. And obviously I don't need anything bigger than 205 because my biggest value is 203.7. Okay, I'm now going to start filling out my frequency table, and of course I want all the values now between 170 and 175, not including 175. So I'm just going to cross them out as I come across them. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. My tally is 4, and my frequency is 4. And then I will continue on and fill out the rest of the table. So I'm up to 190, and I've got 7 there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 195 is 1, and 200 is 2. Now, obviously my total frequencies has to add up to 41. Let's check it. 5 and 4 is 9, and 13 is 22, 9 is 31, 38, 39, 41. So this tells me, a good way of checking to make sure that I've used all of my data there. Part 2 asks me to find the modal interval. Well, remember, the mode is the most frequently occurring value. So in this case, because I've got an interval, it's the most frequently occurring interval. And we see it's the one with the highest frequency. So we are looking at this one here. Okay, so my highest interval here, my modal interval is 180 to 185. Next bit of the question wants us to construct a histogram. So we're going to do that on the next page. Okay, so here's our histogram for continuous data. And the main difference here is that we will draw our bars between the beginning of one interval to the beginning of the next interval. You can see that we have our heading, height of a basketball club, the frequencies on the vertical axes, and the heights are on the horizontal axes. I am going to do a little squiggly line here to suggest that I'm not terribly interested in that data there. My first interval starts at 170, 175, 180, 185, 190, 195, 200. And of course my biggest frequency is 13. So I'm going to go up in 2s. Of course you can go up in 1s if you've got room, and obviously for me in between each one of them is 1 unit, 1 frequency. Okay, I need to now draw my bars. So again, the difference here is that it goes from the beginning of one to the beginning of the other. So you can see now I'm starting to build my histogram. I'm going from 170 to 175. My frequency is 4. At 175, my frequency becomes 5. So I go up to 5, right across to 180, where my frequency now becomes 13. Next one is 190 to 195. So again, this one has a frequency of 7. And there you can see our completed histogram. So again, what's really important here is that we are labeling everything that we really know, frequency and heights on our axes. We're giving the graph a heading. We are having an appropriate scale on the vertical axes. And really important is that we go from the beginning of one interval to the beginning of the next for our histogram.